It began on a warm Sunday afternoon at Maplewood Park, where the Johnson family gathered for a simple BBQ to celebrate Marcus, their eldest son, graduating college with honors. Laughter filled the air as the grill sizzled, kids ran around playing, and the family prepared food with smiles and pride. But across the park, a woman named Karen Whitfield stood watching, with crossed arms and narrowed eyes, her expression filled with irritation rather than curiosity. She didn't see a celebration, she saw a problem. With her history of calling authorities on harmless activities, from kids playing basketball to neighbors painting fences, she approached the Johnsons without a greeting and immediately tried to assert control, insisting the public grill was private and accusing them of breaking rules. When her attempt to intimidate the family failed, she marched back to her car, dialed 911, and fabricated a dramatic story about threats, aggression, and rule-breaking. What she didn't know was that the entire interaction, every lie, every word, was being recorded by the park's new security cameras, which would later expose her actions to everyone. She dialed 911, her voice trembling with fake fear as she claimed a dangerous group was threatening her at a public park. What she didn't know was that the dangerous group she imagined was simply the Johnson family celebrating their son Marcus's college graduation. They had lived in the neighborhood longer than she had, and all they wanted was a peaceful Sunday BBQ. As she accused them of aggression, every second of her behavior was being recorded by a security camera mounted high above, blinking red. The Johnson family had gathered at Maplewood Park, enjoying the warm afternoon with laughter, seasoning food, and children running around. But from a distance, Karen Whitfield watched them with disdain. Known in the neighborhood for reporting harmless activities, kids playing basketball, decorative lights, even her own mailman, she found a new target today. Without greeting or politeness, she marched toward the family, demanding they stop using the public grill, insisting it was private. Mr. Johnson calmly explained it was public, but she scoffed and implied rules were different where they came from, making her prejudice obvious before storming away. Moments later, she sat in her car and dialed 901. Fabricating a dramatic story, they were breaking rules, refusing to leave, and threatening her. None of it was true. Yet officers were dispatched. When they arrived, they saw a peaceful BBQ completely different from her claims. Karen watched eagerly, expecting police to punish the family. But Officer Reyes noticed the park's new high-definition cameras. A quick review of the footage revealed everything. No threat, no aggression, and instead, Karen initiating the confrontation. The officers confronted her gently but firmly, exposing each lie. She stuttered excuses, claiming the camera missed something or that the family made her uncomfortable, but discomfort wasn't a crime, and the officers reminded her of that. Meanwhile, the Johnson family watched from afar, not interfering, just observing the unraveling of a woman who had tried to weaponize her prejudice. Mrs. Johnson whispered her frustration, exhausted by how often their joy was interrupted by incidents like this, while Marcus reassured his younger sister that people's assumptions didn't define their worth. As Karen desperately tried to hold on to her narrative, Officer Miller informed her that calling 911 with false information was a misdemeanor. Her shock was immediate. She'd never been challenged like this before. She was used to being believed simply because she was the one calling. But today, the truth was undeniable. Officer Reyes approached the Johnson family to apologize on behalf of the department, offering to provide the footage if they wished to file a complaint. Marcus accepted, hinting that this wasn't the first time Karen had targeted them or others. Across the park, Karen realized that neighbors were now watching her, some recording, some whispering. She felt exposed in a way she never imagined, especially when she shouted one last bitter insult, "You people ruin everything," before speeding away in humiliation. But her attempt to flee the scene couldn't stop what would happen next. At night, Marcus compiled the footage into a simple, raw video showing the entire encounter, adding no commentary, only the truth. When he uploaded it, the internet erupted. Within hours, thousands watched. By midnight, nearly 200,000 people had seen Karen's lies collapse in real time. Comments poured in. News outlets shared the clip, and the story spread across platforms. By morning, Karen's face and her behavior were everywhere online, and she woke up to a storm she never saw coming. Karen froze as both officers approached her earlier confidence draining from her face as she realized her lies were beginning to collapse. She tried to repeat her story, insisting she felt threatened, but Officer Reyes calmly told her that the park's security footage showed none of the behavior she claimed. Every excuse Karen offered fell apart as quickly as she spoke it. She tried saying the family looked aggressive, then that they were using the grill wrong, then that she felt uncomfortable, but discomfort wasn't a crime, and the officers made that clear. As they questioned her with increasing firmness, Karen stuttered, reached for excuses, and watched the authority she once relied on slip away from her grasp. She wasn't used to being challenged, and for the first time, she realized her words carried consequences she couldn't control. From across the park, the Johnson family observed the scene quietly. They didn't interfere, didn't confront her. They simply watched. Mrs. Johnson whispered to her husband that she was exhausted from moments like this, interrupting their joy. Marcus tried to reassure his younger sister that some people would always judge without knowing anything, but that didn't define who they were. When the officers walked back toward the Johnsons, they apologized for the inconvenience. Officer Miller admitted the call was false and that no wrongdoing had occurred. Marcus, looking directly at him, hinted that similar incidents had happened before, suggesting this wasn't an isolated act by Karen. Officer Reyes offered them access to the footage if they wanted to file a complaint. Meanwhile, Karen felt eyes on her from multiple directions. Neighbors were recording her, some whispering, some shaking their heads. Her humiliation deepened until she finally shouted a hateful line, "You people ruin everything," before fleeing in her car. But running wouldn't help her. That evening, Marcus took the official footage and compiled it into a simple, unedited video showing the full truth. He posted it online with no dramatic editing, only facts. Within minutes, the views began climbing. Within an hour, thousands had seen Karen confront the family, lie to police, and then crumble when the footage proved her wrong. By midnight, nearly 200,000 people had watched the clip, leaving comments expressing shock, frustration, and support for the Johnsons. Influencers reacted to it. News outlets picked it up. The story spread across TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Karen went to bed not realizing that when she woke up, her face, her lies, and her behavior would be known everywhere. The next morning, Karen woke up to a phone buzzing nonstop, flashing with missed calls, messages, and notifications she didn't understand at first. When she finally opened her social media, her heart dropped. Her face, her voice, her lies, everything from the park incident had gone viral. Millions of strangers were scrutinizing her behavior, dissecting her every word and calling out her prejudice. People in her own neighborhood shared past experiences, revealing she had called authorities on teenagers, dog walkers, and neighbors simply existing near her. She deleted her accounts, but the damage was done. The internet never forgets. Meanwhile, the Maplewood HOA board, where Karen had long used her position to control and intimidate residents, held an emergency meeting. As she walked in, expecting sympathy or understanding, the board members confronted her with the viral footage playing on a screen. They had received complaints about her before, but never had proof. Until now. One by one, they expressed their disappointment and frustration, telling her she had misused her authority and embarrassed the entire community. Her excuses didn't work. Her tone didn't work. Nothing worked. The board voted to suspend her immediately, leaving her shocked and speechless. While Karen's world fell apart, the Johnson family experienced a wave of unexpected support. Neighbors brought banners congratulating Marcus, handwritten notes, cupcakes, and even signs drawn by children that said things like, "We support you," and "Congratulations, Marcus." Mrs. Johnson shed tears as she read the messages, touched by the outpouring of love. Marcus felt overwhelmed but grateful, realizing his family had sparked an important conversation. Soon after, a local news reporter named Lena arrived, asking the Johnsons to share their side of the story. Marcus delivered a calm and articulate interview that resonated deeply with viewers. He explained how a harmless celebration turned into a false emergency call and expressed hope that the incident could inspire change. The clip spread quickly, with people praising his maturity and strength. While the Johnsons found unity, Karen faced growing consequences. More people from her past came forward with stories about her calling 911 on them for trivial reasons. Her workplace contacted her. HR began asking questions, and even old friends distanced themselves. The viral clip now had millions of views, and the comments filled with warnings about the dangers of false emergency calls. Finally, 1 week after the incident, the Johnson family decided to reclaim the park with a second BBQ, a healing moment. This time, dozens of neighbors showed up with food, chairs, and music. Officers Reyes and Miller even attended, laughing and sharing food with the family. They made it clear that the community stood with the Johnsons, not with the lies that tried to tear them down. As the sun set, the park filled with warmth, unity, and hope, something far stronger than Karen's attempts to divide them. But even as the Johnsons moved forward, Karen sat isolated at home, realizing the consequences of her choices were only beginning. Letters began to Days after the second BBQ, Karen reached a breaking point. She stayed inside her house with the curtains drawn, overwhelmed by the consequences she never thought she would face. The silence in her home felt suffocating, and nothing she tried helped her escape the storm she had created. When her sister visited, she tried to comfort Karen but also confronted her with the truth. That this situation wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a pattern. Karen had crossed lines repeatedly, and now she was finally being held accountable. For the first time, Karen couldn't defend her actions. She couldn't blame anyone else. She sat quietly, absorbing the reality that her behavior had led to this public downfall. The moment became even heavier when Officer Reyes knocked on her door with an envelope containing a citation for filing a false police report. When Karen realized she might have to appear in court, the consequences hit her even harder. She admitted she never expected things to escalate this way, but Officer Reyes reminded her that misuse of emergency services has serious effects, especially when directed at innocent people. For the first time, Karen understood that her reckless assumptions could have put the Johnson family in real danger. While Karen confronted the consequences of her actions, Marcus received an email from the mayor's office inviting him to speak at an upcoming Community Unity Forum. His calm, truthful interview had touched the entire city, and his story had become bigger than the incident itself. His parents were proud of him, reminding him that leadership sometimes arrives unexpectedly. Marcus accepted the invitation, realizing he had an opportunity to make a meaningful impact. Before the forum, the police department arranged a restorative justice meeting between Karen and the Johnson family. Karen entered the room looking small, ashamed, and unable to meet their eyes. The Johnsons arrived composed and united. Marcus spoke first, explaining the fear, frustration, and exhaustion their family had felt, not just from this incident but from years of being judged unfairly. The facilitator then turned to Karen, asking her why she had felt threatened. She hesitated before admitting she had made assumptions rooted in bias. Her voice cracked as she confessed this wasn't the first time she had reacted this way toward people in the park. It wasn't a justification, just an uncomfortable truth finally being spoken aloud. The Johnson family did not seek revenge. Mr. Johnson calmly explained that what they wanted was not punishment, but change, accountability, and assurance that Karen would not repeat this behavior with anyone else. Karen, emotional and shaken, agreed to step down from the HOA board, attend bias training, and make a public apology to the community as a whole, not just their family. because her actions had affected everyone. Later, at the Community Unity Forum, the auditorium was packed, with residents eager to learn and improve their neighborhood. When Marcus walked onto the stage, applause filled the room. He delivered a powerful speech about assumptions, prejudice, and the importance of truth. He explained how the incident wasn't just about a BBQ or a phone call. It was about fairness and the responsibility everyone shares to make the community better. The audience stood in appreciation, many moved to tears. For the first time since the incident, the community felt united in purpose and understanding. 3 days later, the community gathered once again at Maplewood Park, the same place where everything had started. This time, a small stage had been set up beneath the trees, with microphones ready and dozens of residents waiting quietly. The Johnson family stood together, observing from a distance as Karen slowly walked toward the stage. She no longer carried the confidence or entitlement she once displayed. Instead, she appeared vulnerable, humbled, and shaken by the weight of her action. When she reached the podium, her hands trembled as she gripped the edges, gathering the strength to speak. Her voice cracked as she admitted publicly that she had lied to the police, acted out of prejudice, and created a dangerous situation for an innocent family. She apologized to the Johnson family directly, acknowledging that her assumptions and behavior were rooted in bias and that she had hurt people who had done absolutely nothing wrong. She explained that she had stepped down from the HOA board and committed to attending bias training. Although her apology could not undo the past, it was a step toward accountability. When she finished, she stepped away from the podium and walked off the stage with her head lowered. Marcus approached her quietly afterward, not with hostility, but with honesty. He told her that while an apology couldn't erase the harm she caused, coming forward to admit the truth was the right thing to do. Karen nodded with tears in her eyes, expressing her hope that someday the community would remember her for her growth rather than her worst moment. As she walked away, Officer Reyes approached the Johnson family with new information. She explained that the city had reviewed all recorded 911 calls made by Karen in recent months and discovered she had made multiple complaints targeting other Black residents. Those cases were now being reopened for review, and Karen might face further consequences. The Johnsons listened solemnly, understanding that this incident had exposed a much deeper issue in the community. In the weeks that followed, new protocols were introduced for handling false reports, and the HOA implemented stricter oversight for board members. The Johnson family gradually returned to normal life, carrying the lessons of the experience with them. Marcus began receiving invitations to speak at schools, events, and local organizations about fairness, community responsibility, and the danger of assumptions. He found a sense of purpose he never expected. Eventually, the Johnsons returned to the park for another peaceful BBQ. No drama, no cameras, no conflict. Just family enjoying a warm afternoon together. Officer Reyes stopped by briefly to share a plate of food and chat, offering her support and friendship. In the distance, Karen walked her dog along the path. She looked toward the Johnson family for a moment, and Marcus offered a small, respectful nod. Karen returned the gesture before continuing on her way. There were no words exchanged, but the quiet acknowledgement symbolized something simple yet powerful. The past had happened, but the future didn't have to repeat it. The story closed with a sense of unity, accountability, and hope. For the neighborhood, for the Johnson family, and even for Karen, who had finally begun to confront the truth about herself. And as the sun slowly set over Maplewood Park, one thing became clearer than ever before. This story was never just about a BBQ, or a phone call, or even about one woman's mistake. It became a reminder of how truth rises when lies try to bury it, how unity grows when fear attempts to divide, and how ordinary people can spark extraordinary change simply by refusing to stay silent. Every voice that spoke up, every neighbor who stood beside the Johnson family, every officer who chose honesty over convenience, and every person who watched the footage and understood its weight became a part of something far greater than a viral moment. They became part of a message about accountability, community, and the power of choosing what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. And if this story touched you, opened your eyes, or kept you watching until the very last second, then let this be your moment to join us. Hit the like button not just to support the channel, but to help more people witness real stories like this. Stories that reveal truth, challenge assumptions, and spark conversations that truly matter. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we share powerful, real-life stories filled with twists, lessons, and aha moments that stay with you long after the video ends. And don't go anywhere yet. Your journey doesn't end here. There's another unbelievable story waiting for you right now. Just click on the video appearing on your screen and step into the next chapter of real moments, real people, and real truth. Your support means everything, and your next story starts now.